Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we begin a new Sefer in Lekut Siches, Chelek Chav Beis. We begin with the first Siche on Vayikra, a beautiful Siche on this week's Parsha regarding the subject of Karbonos, which is what most of, or much of, Sefer Vayikra is about. In this Siche, the Rabbi will give us a completely fresh, new, original understanding of what the concept of Karbonos are. B'chlal, in Mefarshim, already from the Rishonim, there's a discussion, what's the significance, what's the meaning of Karbonos. B'chlal, bringing a behemoth, a physical animal, to be sacrificed on the Mizbeach. And there's all kinds of interpretations for this, in Chassidus as well. But here, in this Sikha, the Rebbe gives us a completely new understanding of what a carbon is. The shir today is being learned to the Nishmas, Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Kaltman. Steht im Medrash. It says in the Medrash, in Vayikra Rabbah, Omar Rabasi mipnei ma maschilin letinoikis b'teiros kainen. Rabasi said, why, when you begin learning with children Chumash, you begin learning with them teiros kainen, which is Chumash Vayikra referred to as teiros kainen because it's the halachas that applies to the kainen bringing karbanos. Ve'ei maschilin bebereishis. And we don't begin with them from the beginning, Chumash bereishis. Ella, the reason is, shahatinoikis tahayrin, the children are pure, v'hakarbonis tahayrin, and the karbonis, which speaks about in Vayikra in teiros kainen, are pure. Yavayu tahayrin v'yisaske b'tahayrin. The pure ones shall come and occupy themselves and begin learning about karbonis which are pure. Now, what's meant v'hakarbonis tahayrin? What does it mean when the Medrash says that karbonis are pure? In what sense are karbonis defined as being pure? Atel mefarshim zagen. There are those commentaries that explain, as das meint, as karbonos davon gebracht werden betara. The one that brings a carbon, he has to bring the carbon in purity, nit betume. He should not be tummy. In other words, it's referring to the person bringing the carbon. Unloit andere mefarshim, according to other mefarshim, other commentaries, as durch karbones wird men tar von chet, that it's referring to the effect that a carbon has. By bringing a carbon, it purifies you from any sin. So according to both of these interpretations, it's referring to the person, either to the person that's bringing the carbon, that he should be pure, or the outcome of the carbon, that it affects purity in the person. Both of these interpretations are not smooth in the actual words of V'karbonis tahayrin. From Lashon HaMedrash, V'karbonis tahayrin, the language of Medrash says that the karbonis are pure, is mashma, as the retmen wegen the karbonis atzman, as they zenet tahayrim. We're speaking about the actual karbonis themselves, that they are defined as pure. Onid wegen divas bringen ze. And not about the person bringing the carbon, that he should bring it in purity, or that he becomes pure, but the karbonis themselves are actually pure. So what does this mean? How do we define karbonis as being pure? But on the other hand, to learn the literal and simple understanding. As tahayrin, batzitzich of the karbonis atzman, that tahayrin refers to the actual karbonis themselves, is euch glatik. There's also something that's not smooth here. Men gefindt nit, as Teire soll bei karbonis nutzen die hagdara von tahayrin. We don't find anywhere that the Teire should define karbonis as being pure. Possibly that they happen to be pure, they're being brought into the Beis HaMikdash and they have to be pure, but that doesn't define karbonis in any way. We don't find it in Teire. Men gefindt, as karbonis darf man sein tmimim, mufcharim v'chulu, they have to be whole, without a blemish, and it has to be the chosen, the best, and other things similar. Aber nit together from Teire. We don't find that karbonis are defined as being pure. So what is the Medrash here saying? That the children which are pure are learning about karbonis which are described as being pure. So seemingly we could explain this. As the Geder von Tahayrin da Medrash is masim demit was Chazal sagen wegen the karbonis von lefnei matan Teire. That this definition, this description of pure regarding karbonis comes from the description of karbonis before matan Teire. What does it say there? As Chazal tell us, as hakel ksherim likarev, that any animals can be brought as a carbon, beheme, chaye, va'oif, from a domesticated animal, from a wild beast, or from birds, scharim, unekevis, males, females, tmimin, ubalimumin, whether they're whole or even blemished, tahayrin, but they should be from the pure animals. Avaloi tmeyin, not the impure animals. In other words, the ones that we refer to as the kosher animals, not from the non-kosher animals. Das heißt, as the Geder von Karbonis for matan Teire is tahayrin. The only definitive description that there is regarding what is accepted as a carbon before Matan Torah, none of the other descriptions that it says regarding karbanis after Matan Torah, but just this, that it has to be tahirin, from the pure kind. So that's where it comes from, this expression of tahirin. On the shayches from the karbanis far Matan Torah linyanenu is in them. So we can say, what's the connection of specifically karbanis from before Matan Torah to the subject we're speaking about over here, children beginning to learn chumash from Torah's kainim. We're speaking about children, ketanim, before bar mitzvah. They are not obligated in bringing any karbanis. It says bedugmet to the karbanis from far Matan Torah. So therefore, their level or on their stage in life when they're learning and beginning to learn chumash, so it's similar to, it can be compared to karbanis from before Matan Torah. The chiyuv of karbanis, the time period when there's no mitzvah or obligation to bring karbanis. However, this pshat here in the Medrash, this is kasha. This is difficult to understand. The Medrash is da masber den tam was maschilden letinoikis b'teiras kainen. The Medrash is coming to explain the reason why children begin learning teiras kainen, referring to Torah, referring to this part of Vayikra. Was anhalt die dienen von karbanis von nach Matan Torah. So they begin learning the psukim that speak about the karbanis after Matan Torah. Is wie pasta der Vergleich von Ketanim to Karbanis Shalifnei Matan Torah. So how does this fit with this, that we're saying that the children begin to learn about Karbanis, which are pure, and that description of purity is only found regarding Karbanis before Matan Torah. That's not even what Torah's Kayanim is about. So it's not an adequate explanation. In Tanchume wird gebracht der Oibed Monte Maime. In Tanchume as well, the above mentioned statement regarding children learning from Sefer Vayikra is also brought. And then, following this, it says as follows: Therefore Hashem says, I consider it for them when they learn from Torah's Kainim, the children that is, I consider it as if they are standing and sacrificing the karbanis for me. And the pasuk here is telling you, although the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, and there are no karbanis that are actually brought. So the world stands upon the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. So if not for the children that read from Torah's Kainim, the halachas of karbanis, the world would not be standing. That's what the Tanchuma says. So specifically the children that are learning this. Is tamua, so this is difficult to understand. The Medrash Tanchuma Alein is the Noch Mamshech. The Medrash there later continues and says, Lefi Chacham HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael Banai. The Eibush says to all the Yidden, the Eibush's children, that all Yidden, if you learn from the Torah, the Parsha of Karbanis, I consider it as if you're actually bringing Karbanis as Yedere. Versus Isaac beParshas Karbanis, Nit Narg Tinaikis. Anyone that learns in the Parsha of Karbanis, not just children, is Mailani Olav Kilo as Makar by carbon bepile. It's considered as if he's actually bringing a carbon. Is wie stimmt das mit dem, was the Medrash sagt frier? So how does this fit with what the Medrash before says? As Yilulei hatinoikis dafke, if not for the children specifically, shekayim b'seder akarbanis lehoya elamaymet. The world would not be standing. So for some reason, the world is standing specifically upon the children that are learning the Parsha of Karbanis, although the Medrash itself says that anybody that learns the Parsha of Karbanis is as if he's bringing the Karbanis in the Beis HaMikdash. So we must say, as an carbon, yes, it is true that anybody that learns from Parshas Karbanis, it's as if he's bringing a carbon. But however, in this idea that it's as if you're bringing a carbon is there's still an advantage and something greater accomplished when children are learning the Karbanis more than just anyone else. It's specifically by the children that it's done in the most perfect level, on a higher level. And that is what guarantees that the world should stand. So what is this? What is it unique about children, Dafka, that their learning of Karbanis will guarantee that the world, that the Olam is Aymed? So to understand all of this, so here the Rebbe will come to explain what this concept of Karbanis Tahirin is. And the source of this description of Karbanis Tahirin comes from before Matan Torah. Why are we focusing on that? Even though we're speaking about learning Torah's Kainin, which are the Karbanis after Matan Torah, and specifically the children that learn Parsha of Karbanis. So the Rebbe will give a lengthy explanation to get a better understanding of what the essence of Karbanis are about, which in the Torah really comes up even before Matan Torah, from Adam Rishon already, Karbanis are being brought. Let's understand what this concept of bringing Karbanis are. What's this whole inyan? So let's clarify and explain better the above mentioned statement from the Gemara. As far Matan Torah gekent makir sein Karbanis von alle minim tahirim. Before Matan Torah, you can bring Karbanis as long as it's coming from a kind which is from the animals that are tahir, from the kosher, the tahir animals. Was das lernt man up von Noachim by wem steht Mikola behema tahira. It's learned from what it says by Noach when he brought the animals into the teva, and it defines the animals as the ones that are pure and the ones that are impure. So that distinction exists already in the time of Noach. Frekt of them the Gemara. So the Gemara there asks a question about this. Was there any difference between pure and impure at that time period? Before Torah is given, and so the mitzvah of what's kosher and what's not, what's Torah, what's not, does not apply yet. So how could the pasuk say behema Torah? When the Gemara is masber, and the Gemara explains as the inyan from Torah demot is given ma'ison sha'asidim li Torah. The description of Torah means those that in the future will be pure when the Eibishter gives the Torah. Wie die Gerse in Gemara and wie Rashi bringt the pirushe ala Torah. This is the version that we have. We're going with this version in the Gemara, and Rashi quotes this also in Chumash. So now what do we understand from this? Das heißt, as the Karbanis von Noach far Matan Torah is given adove v'fucha. If you analyze deeper this answer of the Gemara, that the term habehema tahira by Noach means the animals that in the future will be tahira, so it comes out that you have over here two opposite points. The Karbanis was Noach had gebracht sind nicht given an inyan von Kiyum Mitzvah. On one hand, it's clear that the Karbanis Noach brought at that point, he was not commanded to bring this Karbanis. We never find such a concept that Noach fulfilled all of Torah before it was given, like it says by the Yavis. It says, given al derech, we gefindt in alle Zeiten, euch far Matan Torah. Rather, it was like we find in that time period and in all times, and even before Matan Torah, as Bnei Adam, on Adam Atzmai, people, starting and including Adam Harishain himself, haben gebracht Karbanis Lashem mitzad zer eigene hagers zu lieb verschiedene sibes. They brought it with their own feeling, different reasons they had, that they brought Karbanis, not without being commanded at all. So that's one point that we see over here, that Noach is bringing Karbanis, and this is completely his own choice. But on the other hand, though, aber as Noach hat gebracht nor me oison she'asidin li toir. Noach chooses to bring from which animals? From the behema Torah, because these are the animals that in the future, after Matan Torah, will be the pure ones, is from them gufa mochach. So from this itself, it's clear, as das was by Noach is nit gewenken chilik zwischen behemis Torahs und tmeis. The fact that in Noach's times, there is no difference between pure or impure animals. Kakushis Gemara, as the Gemara itself says and asks, was there any concept of Tmein and Teirin in that time period? And nevertheless, he only brings from the Tahirin in the future. So what that means is the mitzvah of the Torah that defines what's kosher and not kosher, what's allowed to eat and what's not allowed to be eaten. And that's what the Torah defines as the Tmein are not allowed to be eaten and the Tahirin are allowed to be eaten. So that's regarding eating. Aber die Havdalah from Tahirin und Tmein al Shema Asid, but still the distinction that there's what's Tahirin and there's what's Tmein, which is based on the future, is Shay Bayim Given. He's already acting upon that, and the concept already exists in his times. If it's al Shema Asid and it has no relevance now at all, so then it's not possible for Noach. There's no reason. There would be no significance. There's no concept of Noach doing this al Shem HaAsid. If Noach is doing so al Shem HaAsid, so what this means is that even now there is a concept of Tahirin and Tmein. True, not like it is after Matan Torah, where then there's the actual mitzvah of what you're allowed to eat and what not. But still, the idea of Tahirin applies now, and Noach chooses to bring specifically from Tahirin. So if so, it comes out as fun Noachim, already beginning from Noach, that brings these karbanis, is shen geven a haschala of gidrei Torah. This is a beginning for certain things, the way they are defined according to Torah. As that is given, even though he's before Matan Torah. Und noch mehr, furthermore, he's even before the Avis, where they behaved similar to after Matan Torah. They fulfilled all mitzvahs even before it was given. And Noach is even before that time period. But nevertheless, there's a certain beginning of a relation to things the way they are defined with Torah. And therefore he chooses to bring specifically, even though he wasn't commanded, but he chooses to bring specifically from these animals that are tar, from those that in the future are going to be tar here. So now, since we see that this relation that Noach's behavior has to the concept of Matan Torah is expressed in Torah specifically regarding the subject of Karbanis, we don't find regarding any other of his behaviors that there was attention paid to the way things are defined by Matan Torah. Is Yeshleimar, das is the far. The reason for this is because Valdafke, der Inyan from Karbanis, is ba'ofen miyuchad shayach eich edem at bakomen Torah Matan Torah. Specifically regarding Karbanis, this is a mitzvah in the Torah, this is a concept in the Torah that is uniquely connected to before Matan Torah, even before the Torah is given. So that's why the beginning of Matan Torah, the connection to Torah, begins dafke in Karbanis, because really Karbanis is something which is higher or before Matan Torah, as will be explained over here. Okay, so here the Rebbe, based on this, we already see the beginning of where the Rebbe is going here. The point of the whole question of the Sikha was that you have the Karbanis before Matan Torah, and seemingly then it's defined as Tahirin, but that has nothing to do with Karbanis after Matan Torah. After Matan Torah, we never find in the Torah that Karbanis are defined as Tahirin. So here in this Gemara, the Rebbe already points out to us that we see that before Matan Torah, the fact that then Karbanis are defined as Tahirin or Behema Tahira is related to Matan Torah. It's Asidin, because in the future it's going to be Tahirin. Right? And over here, the Rabbi is showing us that the reason for this is because already from before Matan Torah, there is a relation to Matan Torah, and this is a unique thing about Karbanis, that Karbanis starts dafke before Matan Torah. So one of the explanations that could be said about this is as follows. Karbanis oich von noch Matan Torah, in general regarding all Karbanis, including of after Matan Torah. Although they are from the Taryag Mitzvahs Torah. Many of the Taryag Mitzvahs are the Karbanis. However, in their effect, or in the action of bringing them, and in the effect that they have, and really, therefore, in their very essence of what Karbanis are, they're higher than Torah Mitzvahs. Und therefore, the pu'ula of a carbon is that you bring a carbon to receive a forgiveness, an atonement for any lack in any area of Torah mitzvahs. That's a carbon chatas, a carbon oilah, carbon ashram, and so on. It's all related to being able to atone for one that was over on Torah mitzvahs. So the fact that a carbon has the power to bring a kapara for that, so it means that really the essence of a carbon is higher than the connection a Yid has to Hashem through Torah mitzvahs. The signa nacher, to explain this in a different way, when a Yid brings a carbon Hashem, when a Yid brings a carbon for Hashem, drickt de mitois sein karev la Hashem. He is expressing his closeness to Hashem, sein Verbund mit dem Eibishten, his connection to Hashem, was hat be'etzem alzid. It's expressing the essential connection that he has to Hashem as a Yid. Which is not dependent on, which does not come out through learning Torah or fulfilling mitzvahs. And just like we're speaking about a level of connection that's not created through the Torah and mitzvahs, we're speaking about a connection that's not affected, that's not minimized through not fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. This is the very essence of the identity of the Yid that's one with Hashem. That atzmiisdige Verbund von Yidden mit dem Eibischen is hecher von Torah mitzvahs. The very essential connection that Yidden and Hashem are one is higher than Torah mitzvahs. And that is the level of connection that bringing a carbon expresses. Al derech ma shenemar. This is similar to the Lashon the Pasuk says, describing Yidden. The Yidden are the children of Hashem, which means Afapi shechatu banayim. As Chazal tell us, even if a Yid sins, the description of who a Yid is, that we are Hashem's children, does not change. Und das ist der Tam, for was Karbonis and a Mechaper of a Chetvav. This is the reason why bringing a carbon has the power to bring forgiveness when a Yid sins. And this connects from Hashem on that level, where he did not do the mitzvah. When a Yid, God forbid, transgresses on Hashem's will, and he brings about a blemish in his connection to Hashem, God forbid, so his unification with Hashem that comes as a result of fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. That's what a mitzvah is about. A mitzvah means connection. This can be rectified by bringing karbonis. How? This is by arousing and revealing. When you bring a carbon, the essential connection that a yid has with Hashem, and and on this level there is no blemish. When you reveal that, so what happens is it elevates the yid to a level of connection where the blemish does not matter anymore, and therefore it renews his connection. Und das is mechaper, this atones, visht up, and it also wipes away the pagam from the mchetvav, the blemish that was created through the aveda that happened. Right? So now, in other words, not only does it lift up a person higher than that place where the blemish is, but it actually also has the effect to wipe away that blemish in that place where it is. That's the power of a carbon. So therefore we see here that karbonis, yes, it's one of the Taryag mitzvahs, but it's very different. It has an extremely powerful element to it that's higher than the concept of Torah mitzvahs. It reveals the essence of a yid. Now, where do we see this in the concept of karbonis itself? Why is it that karbonis itself is something that reveals the essence of a yid? Apianal, so the Rebbe will now explain this here in the next sif. Apianal kumt euch zu, a toisvis avonen, dem ganzen inyan karbonis. This brings to us a completely new approach, a new understanding in the whole entire concept of bringing karbonis. At first glance, you can ask the following question about karbonis. And as mentioned at the beginning, the concept of karbonis, which is such a big focus in the Beis HaMikdash, it's the main purpose of the Beis HaMikdash, is a question that many Mefarshim speak about. What's so significant about karbonis? Wie kommt es als kav ha'aveda? That category of how a person serves Hashem through Aveda, the service, was der Rebbe hat eingestellt für Yidden, that Hashem established for Yidden, soll sein durch Aveda Karbonis. It's all focused around Karbonis, which means durch Shechtna, Beheme, V'chul. You take a physical animal and slaughter it, und sie makriv sein auf dem Mizbeach, and then sacrifice it on the Mizbeach. Chayre, seemingly, what mem masm gewen an Aveda Ruchnis. To say, the central Aveda Vayid should be focused around a spiritual connection to Hashem. Aveda should believe, and Aveda in the heart, Tefillah, v'chayetze b'zeh davening. Was bringt the reis die Verbindung von Yidden mit der Lakus an Eifem Goli Yosef, which expresses the connection a Yid has to godliness in a much more real way, in a much more revealed sense. Instead, it's the other way around. The main Aveda is supposed to be karbonis. Today, we don't have karbonis, so Tefillah takes the place of karbonis. But that's not the Iker. Why is the Iker the Aveda of karbonis, the way it's brought in the Beis HaMikdash? The question goes even further. As karbonis, zenenita ninyin versus eisgeteilt nor far Yidden. Concept of karbonis is not only something that's found specifically by Yidden. Euch u'misa'elam, even Goyim, haben die Afshadis, zu makriv sein karbonis, und afila bebeis HaMikdash ki yedua. Even karbonis also have the option, the possibility to bring karbonis, and even in the Beis HaMikdash, a guy can send and bring a carbon. So the whole entire concept of karbonis is not unique for Yidden. So how does karbonis, which is seemingly a physical action and dealing with a behemoth, with blood, with slaughtering, something which relates to and is possible by Goyim as well. And this is the deepest way of connecting to Hashem. Why is that so? But based on what we said before, is thus move on. It's understood. The fact that karbonis are what they are, this expresses the whole point of how karbonis are higher than the rest of Torah mitzvahs. It's specifically for this reason. The essential connection of a Yid to Hashem is hecher von the hiskashres durch zeir aveda b'Torah mitzvahs. It's on a completely different level than the regular connection that a Yid expresses in his Avodah to connect to Hashem in Torah and mitzvahs. In other words, the regular Avodah of a Yid in Torah and mitzvahs is expressing a certain level of a feeling, a certain level of kedusha that comes out, that a person works on and attains based on a certain mitzias, that the level that he's on. That's the usual Avodah. Avodah means that a person is connecting based on certain realities, certain levels of his entity, of who he is. That's Torah mitzvahs. But over here, though, we're speaking about the essence, the very essence of a Yid that's beyond that. That essence that a Yid is one with Hashem, even more than what the Rebbe said before, which is the Bana Matam Lavai Elekechem, it actually comes from Hashem, that Hashem chooses the Yid. And what's the concept of choice? This is extremely deep. As Chach Ach Esav LeYaakov. Choice means even though Esav and Yaakov are brothers. And what this is expressing is that you look at the Yid and you look at Lahavdul the guy externally, the guf of the Yid, the guf of the guy, it's one and the same thing. Afal Pikein, but yet V'oyev es Yaakov mitzat b'chirasa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the Eibishter's choice. It's him. It's not something which is related to any nature, to any level of a mile, of a certain advantage that a Yid has, and that's the source of his connection. The connection to Hashem is purely from above, purely from Hashem, that He chooses it, without any reason, without anything that's bringing this choice. So it's this itself is the very reason. So therefore, this essential connection that's so deep and it's beyond any spiritual level or any spiritual accomplishment or feeling. So therefore, this deep connection that comes from Hashem Himself choosing the physical entity of the Yid is expressed how? Specifically in Karbanis. The physical action of sacrificing a carbon is an irnit nikker de ruchnis van a Yid. You don't have noticed here. It doesn't express any spiritual level of a Yid. And especially as mentioned before, the chiluk even a difference between the way a Yid brings a carbon or a guy that's able to bring a carbon. And here Hashem says, this avodah, you're going to take a physical animal, and the physical bringing and sacrificing of this carbon of the Mizbech is ma'oyer, the yiskashers atzmis, was is b'pchirasi yisbarach. This will trigger, and this connects to that essential connection that comes from Hashem's choice. That Hashem says, I choose this, I ask you to do this, to bring this carbon, not because you feel any elevation, any level of connection that you relate to. It's not anything that we can relate to. It's Hashem saying that this is what I choose in the Yid. I choose the essence of the Yid, and that's expressed in the physical carbon that's being brought. This is similar to the Hezbollah, what Alter Rebbe says in Tanya. The Bechira of Hashem, the fact that Hashem chooses a Yid, is expressed where? Not in the Neshama. The Neshama is an entity which is holy and pure, which expresses a certain nature and level of connection to Hashem. It's specifically the body of the Yid, where you can't see anything here in it that you can say that this is the reason why it's connected. It's purely from Hashem. It's the body of the body of the Yid, which in its coarseness and its physical existence is the same as the body of any guy. And nevertheless, this is Hashem's choice that He chooses the body of the Yid to be His. And that's the idea, dafke in the physical avodah of karbanis. You walk into the Beis HaMikdash and you see animals and blood and an avodah that seems to be low and dirty and so on. But this expresses the deepest and most essential connection a Yid has to Hashem beyond any other level of Torah mitzvahs in a spiritual kind of Avodah. So this is a completely new idea, a new approach, a new understanding of what the concept of a carbon is. So now we can understand was the Karbanis von Noach far Matan Torah haben gat a Sheiches to the Karbanis lachri Matan Torah. Why specifically regarding Karbanis we find that by Noach we see that his connection to after Matan Torah is expressed specifically regarding Karbanis, and that his Karbanis he brought is related to the Karbanis after Matan Torah. Since they given the gather from Tahirin, that already by his Karbanis they're defined as being Tahirin. Why? Al Shema Asid, because it's related to the Asid, the Karbanis that is written in the Torah after Matan Torah. What's the point there? Das was Noach hat machtig when Karbanis, when Noach brings Karbanis, is given outside Dol Hashem. So he was bringing these Karbanis, thanking Hashem for what? For them was is geratet with geworden from Mabel. For this that he was saved from the Mabel. When he comes out of the table, he brings these Karbanis. Vayikra Elokim es Noach, the fact that Hashem remembered Noach and saved his life. That's what these karbanos were coming to express. Now, what happened here? When Noach is saved from the Mabul, what really is expressed in this? So the Rabbi here brings what it says in Chassidus, Yudua, so it's known, the Hezber Favos, the Pasuk Vayikra Elokim es Noach. It's explained that this Pasuk Vayikra Elokim es Noach is eine von the Psuki Zechreines, was wird gesagt in Rosh Hashanah. This is one of the psukim that are said on Rosh Hashanah and the Tefillah of Musaf when we're supposed to say the karbanos of Zechreines. What's the theme of the karbanos of Zechreines? It's speaking about the special memory of Hashem remembering Yidden. Das heißt, as the Vayikra Elokim es Noach hat a kesher is a tale von Yale Zechrenechem Lefanei L'Teva. When it says that Hashem remembers Noach and saves his life at the Mabul, this is connected and this is part of the Yidden's memory coming up in front of Hashem, the special connection that Yidden have to Hashem. So the question is, what's the connection of Noach to the concept of Zechreines and Rosh Hashanah, which is specifically about Yidden? So it says in Chassidus, Val di Schire von Noach, and this that Noach was saved at the Mabul. This that Hashem remembered Noach is given mitzad etzem mailas neshamas Yisrael. This is because of Hashem's special and essential connection to Yidden. Because from Noach comes Yidden. Right? Ultimately, that's where Yidden come from. Noach is the only one that was saved. Why was Noach saved? Because of the Zechira of Yidden. Vayikra Elokim really means Hashem remember the essence of Yidden that is there in Noach, that comes from Noach. Vastafar Zakmen, and therefore this is expressed in what we say, V'gamas Noach ba'av zacharta. That remembering and saving the life of Noach was not just the concept that Hashem wanted humanity and the world to continue existing after the Mabul, and therefore he saves one human being so that the world should redevelop afterwards. But it's the Ava. What's this Ava? The Ava is the Yidden that come from Noach, the essence of Yidden that are there. Was meint, the Ava pnimis va'atzmis zu neshamas Yisrael. This refers to the very deep and essential love to Yidden. That's what happens when Noach is saved from the Mabul. So now it's at this time period when Noach is saved from the Mabul and Hashem remembers the essence of Yidden that Noach is not coming and thanking Hashem for and bringing a carbon for this. So kumtais, if that's the case, it comes out as Chotch, Noach is given far Matan Torah. Noach is before Matan Torah. Was damals is given uvana v'chartim kolam v'loshen. The choice that Hashem chooses Yidden to be His only begins at the time of Matan Torah. And Noach was not yet in the time where things began as a preparation for Matan Torah, like it was in the time of the Avis. This is the time period when Yidden begin formulating as a nation, and therefore they're referred to as the Avis. They are the forefathers of the nation that will come. But nevertheless, he has a connection to the neshamas of Yidden. Was the far is by Noach given as zechira ba'ava mitzad etzem mailas neshamas Yisrael. In the time of Noach, the love that Hashem remembers him and saves him is really remembering the very essence of a Yid. In other words, the point over here is Adarabah. At the time of Matan Torah, or beginning already from the Avis, the connection of Yidden comes out and is expressed in a way that they're already chosen as a nation. So there's a certain aspect of the connection that Yidden have to Hashem that relates to who they are. In the time of Noach, when it's just Noach, and Noach is just an individual part of Kol Goyei Aretz like everybody else, and he's being saved because of the Yidden that Hashem chooses. Over here, this essence of who Yidden are, before there's any revelation aspect of it, is expressed after then. Und damit is euch move on. So with this we understand also, Favos, the Karbanis was Noach had gebracht. Behemshach to the Zechire, why? Now the Karbanis that Noach brings, following this, that he was remembered, after the Mabul, V'hoidah, far sein Nitzel waren from Mabul, and this, that he thanks Hashem for being saved from the Mabul, hot kahat, ashayches, to the Karbanis from Yidden, from Yidden la'achrim Matan Torah. This is connected to the Karbanis that Yidden bring after Matan Torah. Because as explained before, the Karbanis that Yidden bring after Matan Torah, what are those Karbanis? Those Karbanis are there as a kapara. They express the essential connection of a Yid to Hashem. So those Karbanis, it really begins, and it's in the time of Noach when he brings the carbon after the Mabul. And das is euch the beer, and then was the Medrash sagt. So this brings us back now to understand what the Medrash tells us. Wegen the Karbanis von Teiras Kainim, the Karbanis that it speaks about in the Teiras Kainim, Karbanis Tahirim, speaking about the Karbanis after Matan Torah, and the Medrash refers to them, how are they described as Tahirim, that they are pure. Was Tahayrin is the Hagdara in Karbanis from far Matan Torah canal. Although this description of Tahayrin are the Karbanis from before Matan Torah. The reason is, Vibal, that Teichim Panimi from Karbanis is Kanal to Megalas and the Ava Atzmis Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu was this Hecha from the Ava Shal Yadei Torah. What are Karbanis essentially, even Karbanis after Matan Torah? They express the deepest connection a Yid has to Hashem, which is even higher than Torah. Drikt das sich eis mehr in the Karbanis Shal Noach von Lifnei Matan Torah. So where is this fully expressed in the Karbanis from before Matan Torah? Nach this is given that Sivui of Karbanis. Before there's a command to bring Karbanis. Once bringing Karbanis turns into a mitzvah, so now there's another element of Karbanis here where it's a specific mitzvah. But the essence of what Karbanis are, b'muhusam, which starts from before Matan Torah, is expressed in the Tahayrin of Karbanis, which is the way they're described before Matan Torah. Masha'enkein noch Matan Torah, which is not the case after Matan Torah, is any the Karbanis and initial mitzvah. Now the Karbanis also become a mitzvah. Isn't Zay defined it Nikim Begoloi, so it's not noticeable in a revealed sense, although this is what the essence of the Karbanis are, even after Matan Torah, but it's not revealed in it, from the Polo from Torah. That really the Karbanis are higher, they have a greater effect than the connection that Eden have through Torah. So therefore the Medrash is saying over here, Karbanis Tahayre, and this is really the essence of what Karbanis are before Matan Torah. So now, coming back to the children. We begin learning with children from where? From Teres Kayanim. Let the children which are Tahayim, which are pure, and learn about these Karbanis that are Tahayim. So now, going through the 3 time periods mentioned before, which were as follows: Zint Matan Torah, from after Matan Torah, when Yidden haben Mekabel gewähnt und Mekayim gewähnt Torah Mitzvahs al Pitzivi Hashem. Once Yidden received Torah Mitzvahs and fulfilled Torah Mitzvahs, and Beis unheimlich from the Yavis, the time period of the Avis was Kaim Kol HaTorah Kulat Shle Nitna. They already fulfilled Torah even before it's given, so it's already a certain beginning and a preparation for Matan Torah. And Gimel, und nach Frier, even before this, from Noach, from the time period of Noach, by wem es is gewähnt noch a Shayches to Torah. Then it has a relation to Torah. Akopanim Ageda from Tumet Tara Canal. You could define the animals that he brings as Tahayrin because of the future, but it's not yet related to Matan Torah. Those are the 3 time periods that we spoke about here in the Sikha. So now these 3 time periods relate to the time periods of the life of a Yid. Ishleimar as Dugmas von die 3 Tkufis is da by jeden Yidden. You have this in the life of every Yid. Aleph, nachdem wir wird a bar bas mitzvah und am choive mitzvahs. After the age of bar bas mitzvah, you will become obligated in the mitzvahs. Beis, and then you have the stage before this, from when a child comes to the age where chinuch, to educate him, already becomes an obligation. Und sein kima Torah mitzvahs is als achane zu zman chiyuvam. This is the time to prepare and train him for the time when he will become obligated. It's the second stage. And even earlier, Gimel, noch kaidem shehigia lechinuch, even before he comes to this stage of chinuch, when is noch nit shaykh di anhage, when es is noch nit shaykh di anhage from kiyama Torah mitzvahs. It's not yet possible to train him to behave, to fulfill Torah mitzvahs, aber afal pikein, but yet, vibal, that is a Yiddish kind, it's a Jewish child, hat euch demot a shaykhs to Torah, so then he's already related to Torah. Not only is he also related to Torah, but even more so at this time period, im is gegeben geworden die Torah. Hashem gives him the essence of the Torah. The Torah is Yerusha. It's an inheritance. A child, even 1 day old, inherits completely. And therefore, at that time period, even at the youngest age, a child is related and connected to Torah. So now, when it comes to these children, a child before the age of chinuch is noch nida derin aveda b'Torah mitzvahs. He can't yet serve Hashem by fulfilling the actual Torah mitzvahs. Is by im defan nikir begilui. That's a period in the time, the person's life, where it's very revealed what sein Maila atzmitz als Yiddishkind. Just the essential Maila, his very identity of who he is, that he's a Jewish child. The very deep and essential connection of Hashem to Yidden is mer begilui by a Yiddish kind, by a child even before he comes to the age of chinuch. So this is really the reason why Hashem creates a child in these three stages. A child is not born immediately to be a mature adult, because the foundation of a Yid's life has to begin with that stage and period where there's that essential connection that's more expressed in the very identity of who he is, that he's a child, a Yiddish kind, even before he can behave and do anything according to Torah mitzvahs. That is the source and the level of connection that's above everything. Und das ist, was the Medrash sagt, Yevayu Tahirem v'yisaske b'Tahirem. Let the pure children come and first begin their connection to Torah by learning about the pure Karbanis. V'bal der Inyan HaKarbanis is zu areis rufen und megala sein der Ava Atzmus von Eibischen zu Yidden. Karbanis really is here to express the deepest love of Hashem to Yidden, welches hecher von der Ava Shadei Limud Torah, which is deeper than the love that comes out through actually learning what it says in Torah. And therefore it's this level of love and connection that Yidden have to Hashem in Karbanis that brings the atonement that Karbanis accomplish. They are essentially tahir, not tahir in a situation where there's a possibility for impurity. Really tahir, removed from any impurity. Delangen in an art that reaches in a place and a level wo der Inyan Atome kommt nicht zu. It's a level where there is no possibility for impurity. It doesn't touch there. The far is Yevayu Tahirem v'yisaske b'Tahirem. Let the pure children and come and learn about the Karbanis that are Tahirem, as od dies askus and Tahirem soll sein durch Yiddische Kinder welche sind Tahirem. Learning about the Karbanis that are Tahirem is through the little children that are Tahirem. V'yer teaches up in Tanchume, as the Tanchume there explains it, einem yoyde mau tam chet vavim. They have no even taste of any Aveda, which means by Zeh is not Shayach, the ganze Inyan Chet Vavim. Not only they don't actually sin, but they're pure little children that have no relation to the concept of a Chet. Because the essential connection of the Eibishter to the Yidden over here doesn't allow for anything else. It's just the Eibishter and Yidden. The far was by Zeh is Meir begilui the Ava Atzmis von Eibishten zu Yidden. This is the time period in the child's life when the very deepest connection of him to Hashem is very apparent and very strong, and that's expressed by the fact that the children are learning about Karbanis, which are Tahirim. Based on all of this, as I move on, it's also understood this idea that the children which are pure and learn about the Karbanis which are pure, the Kriya in Teres Kain and Durach Tinekis, even though anybody that learns about Karbanis, the world, you would think should stand upon this because it's as if he's bringing a carbon. But in Tanchume it says that it's after the children, when they learn about Karbanis, the world stands upon this. Das was the Gedalim zenen Eisik in Parshas HaKarbanis. When the Gedalim, when an adult learns about the Parsha of Karbanis, is doch nit an amaisa. He's learning, he's understanding, he's learning and understanding the concept of the Karbanis. That's not an action over here. Nor blois as askus b'machshava dibur. He's involved in the Karbanis, whether in his thought or even in his speech, saying the words that he's learning in Torah. The Alter Rebbe is mas, but Alter Rebbe Lekut Torah explains as machshava zu tefillah, avodah shebelev shekeneged Karbanis, when a yid davens, and the main point of davening is the contemplation and the involvement of the heart and mind. So that's the machshava of Karbanis. V'dibur hu talmud Torah the Karbanis, and the dibur, the speech of a carbon, is when you learn and you say the words of Torah. These two garments of the soul that a person expresses through speech or thought in Karbanis is ikir in yanam. The main idea of thought and speech is to megala sein dem seichel adam oder sein regische middes. What is thought and speech? It's a mode of communication. It's a mode of expression. You're expressing a feeling, an idea of a connection. In Zay is that Ikke Nityaisius. Over here, the main thing is not just the letters, the syllables that you say. They're here as garments, and the main point is the content, the seichel, the midah, the experience, the feeling that comes out in the machshava and the dibur. It's rather the main thing is the intellect or the emotion that's there in the letters that you're expressing, whether in davening or also the ideas that you're expressing and what you're learning. So if so, this level of an adult that learns Karbanis and he's expressing an idea that he understands or feels in his davening. So what is this? This is the feeling and the level of connection that's formulated that comes from the entity of a person. So therefore, the Herzog donit if I feel the Meile Atzmus von Yidden. So over here, it's not expressed, and you don't sense here the essential connection of a Yid versus Mitzad B'chiras HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Yidden, which comes from the fact that Hashem chooses a Yid and has nothing to do with your personal understanding or feelings. So therefore, when a Yid on this level as an adult is learning, that doesn't express the deepest connection that comes out in the carbon. It's when children are reading the words of Chumash. Right at the beginning, at the first time they're reading a pasuk in Chumash. This is the beginning when children begin learning from Chumash, when sie sind noch koidem sheigil chinuch, before even an age of chinuch, und bei sie ist noch nicht dort der initial avana vasage. They're not yet on a level of understanding and comprehending the concepts of what they learn. As we see, the custom is as blois the ascholas element from Tanaikis as from Sefer Vayikra. The beginning they start with Vayikra. Aber danach lernt man mit Zeh beseder acher, and then you go back to Bereshis or whatever the minig is to learn from other places in Chumash. Over here, it's just reading the very words. The ikir thereby is nit der teichana debor. Here, the children are not expressing a certain content of understanding or feeling in what they're learning, nor der akimas vasayim shel laktanim. It's the pure children with the movements of their lips that are saying the holy words of Torah. It's specifically this that calls out and draws down the very deepest connection of Hashem to a Yid. Al derech anal sivav, as mentioned before, as bechiras HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in guf dafke, the physical body, where you don't see any maila, you don't see anything expressed, but it's Hashem that chooses the physical body. Same here, with the physical, the child is physically expressing the words, the holy words of Torah. Ubemele is that oiftu durich dem betachlis hashleimus. This is the real accomplishment in its most ultimate form. And therefore the Medrash tells us, even though anybody that learns about the parsha of Karbonis is as if he's being Isaac in Karbonis, but specifically the children, it expresses it fully to its fullest extent, and therefore it's dafka on this that the entire world stands.